This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
We have got a special presentation of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richard playing starter sit for Fantasy Week 6. Can you start Chris Johnson this week? Can you start Danny Amendola? We'll tell you right now, but let's start with quarterbacks. Jamie, I'll throw to you first. RG3, starter sit.
Start of the week. RG3 is going to have a big game. Look, coming off his bye week, he should be ready to go. That knee should be ready. He should be healthy. His best game last year, Thanksgiving Day against the Dallas Cowboys, 4 touchdown passes. I don't know if he's going to get to that, but the Dallas Cowboys, you know what? They allow the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So RG3's got a great opportunity this week. Hopefully that knee is okay, and we start to see the RG3 that we expected this year.
Colin Kaepernick, Dave, starter sit.
I'm nervous about using him because of the track record that we've seen from him over the past couple of weeks, and especially what we've seen from the 49ers over their last 2 games. They're running the football more, and it's not with Kaepernick. They're running the football with their running backs. Kaepernick isn't being asked to do much, attempted less than 20 passes just last week. So I don't know if you can expect a big game from him, and the Cardinals' pass defense has gotten better the last 2 weeks. They did a great job against Cam Newton last week. I think you look at Kaepernick and you find another quarterback.
And we go to running backs now, and Dave, stick with you, and Fred Jackson this week, starter sit.
I'm nervous because the matchup is tough for him. Cincinnati's been great against running backs all year. Only 3 have had at least 10 fantasy points. Maybe that's a good thing. They've only played 5 games, so 3 of the 5 that they played, they've done well. But I'm starting Fred Jackson just because of how well he's been playing, the opportunities he's been getting. Buffalo's been giving him the ball at the goal line, in the 2-minute drill, when they're behind in the game. He's involved there even more than C.J. Spiller was last week because Spiller's banged up. I think Fred Jackson continues to piece together a good fantasy week here, and I think he gets at least 10 fantasy points.
Let me guess. We're sitting Chris Johnson.
Oh, we are sitting Chris Johnson, but the thing is, we said sit him last week. He saved it with 1 play.
Yep.
Really didn't have a good game other than that. So this week, sit Chris Johnson.
Yeah, that's what great players do. They end up turning things out of nothing into something, and he was able to do that in what should have been a tough matchup. This is another tough matchup for him, so it depends on who you have when you're talking about sitting Chris Johnson. But this matchup, Seattle at home, one of the worst places to play for an opposing offense, and clearly Chris Johnson not running at the level that you hope for. So if you're counting on him getting a fluky receiving touchdown, go ahead and start Chris Johnson. Obviously very difficult to bench someone of his caliber, but as Dave just mentioned with Fred Jackson, if you're sitting on Fred Jackson, haven't been playing him, been running Chris Johnson out there, time to make the switch. There are a lot of other running backs that are better than Chris Johnson.
You want to guess our next wide receiver?
I'm going to guess start Danny Amendola.
You got it. Tell me why we're starting Danny Amendola.
He's back, and I think you're going to see a change in this Patriots offense because they are getting their weapons back. We're going to get Rob Gronkowski back, hopefully. We're going to get Danny Amendola now week into playing, and hopefully he's back to 100%. The targets were there. He led them in targets last week. I think that's something to build on because once he starts to get rolling a little bit, you'll start to see the Danny Amendola in this offense that we expected when the season starts. The matchup, I think you're going to see these teams both throwing at a very high level, and we saw last week receivers can make plays against that Saints defense. Both Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall score touchdowns. I think you'll see Danny Amendola very involved.
A wide receiver to sit, Dave, Larry Fitzgerald.
I'm nervous about him, and
Wow.
if you've got him on your team and you don't have any other options, that's one thing, and I think you can start him in that case. But the history, at least last year against San Francisco, he struggled, and he struggled against a lot of teams because he didn't have a quarterback that could get him the football. Well, it's not much better this year. Carson Palmer's better. It's an upgrade than what he had before, but the offensive line is still a mess. The 49ers are going to bring their pass rush, put a lot of pressure on Carson Palmer to make plays. I'm worried that Larry Fitzgerald just might disappoint you this week. I don't think he's going to get you 15 fantasy points. I'm not even sure he's going to get you 11 fantasy points. I think it's going to be less than that.
We look at tight ends, 1 to start and 1 to sit. Owen Daniels out with a leg injury. Hello, Garrett Graham. Dave, start Garrett Graham this week.
When you look back at Matt Schaub's last 30 touchdowns, tight ends have caught 18 of them. That's every touchdown Schaub threw last year and so far this season. They use the tight end a lot. Owen Daniels being out of there, that opens the door for Garrett Graham to have some great numbers. I'm just going to read you some numbers. 8, 9, 0, 12, and 1. That's the fantasy point production Garrett Graham has had through 5 games. That's while splitting time with Owen Daniels. Now he's going to have those targets all to himself. I expect him to be very involved in Houston's offense. The Rams have done very well against tight ends over the course of the year. I still think Garrett Graham gets good numbers. I think he's good enough to start this week.
But Jared Cook hasn't been good enough to start in a long time, so we're saying sit him.
He's getting outplayed by his backup. Lance Kendricks has more fantasy points the last 2 games than Jared Cook does. He's just not playing at a very high level right now. And in that same game, it's going to be a tough matchup for him because the Texans, yes, they did give up a big touchdown to Vernon Davis, but nobody's comparing Vernon Davis and Jared Cook in the same sentence right now. So Jared Cook not getting the job done, getting outplayed by his backup, really struggling since that Week 1 performance. You just can get away from him right now. He's just not playing well.
Yeah, and if you're a Cook owner, Garrett Graham probably out there. Go ahead and make that swap. And, of course, watch our Video show noon Eastern, Tuesday through Friday, Sunday morning 11 a.m. Eastern on fantasynews.cbssports.com. We'll help you set your lineup. You can check our rankings on the website and our podcast and iTunes. For Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg, I'm Adam Azer. This has been a special presentation of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports.